Jonas Akanum had never believed in monsters until he met Madam Adora. That night, he ran barefoot through the empty streets of Onitsha, bleeding, trembling, whispering prayers under his breath. Behind him, the wind carried her voice, soft, calm, and terrifying. "Jonas, come back, my son. You haven't finished your meal." He didn't dare look back. Every time he blinked, he saw her face again, those glowing eyes, the gold bangles that jingled even in the dark, the smile that promised kindness but hid something far worse. He stumbled through the gates of Hillcrest Police Post, crashing to the floor. "My landlady," he gasped. "Please help. She's not human, she's a monster." The officers rushed toward him, confused. "Calm down, young man. Who's chasing you?" Jonas clutched his phone like a weapon. "Her name is Madam Adora. She kills, she eats," his voice broke. "She calls it peace." One of the officers frowned. "Peace?" Jonas nodded weakly. "Yes. She feeds us, prays for us, and then she takes us, one by one." The officers exchanged nervous glances. One took the phone and pressed play. The dim video showed a room lit by candlelight. A metal freezer. The lid opened slowly. Inside, frozen limbs, a torso, and a face pressed against plastic. Then from the background, a woman's soft hum filled the room, the same tune Jonas had heard every blessing meal at her compound. "Turn it off," the officer shouted, his hand trembling. Jonas fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "She told me room 5 brings peace," he whispered. "But peace never leaves that house alive." A chill swept through the station. Outside, the wind shifted. The faint sound of jingling bangles echoed through the night, once, twice, then silence. And somewhere, far away, Madam Adora smiled. Before the screams, before the fear, there was peace. Or so Jonas thought. When he first arrived in Onitsha from Uyo, life had been hard. His new job as a graphic designer barely paid enough to feed him, and every landlord demanded 3 months' rent up front. Then one afternoon, while walking through a quiet street, he saw it, a faded sign that read, "Room for rent, number 19 Ember Close." The compound looked harmless. A small gate, peeling peach paint, a mango tree by the corner. The air smelled faintly of stew and palm oil. Children's laughter floated from the next compound, but here, everything felt still, almost too still. Then she appeared. Tall, elegant, skin smooth like bronze, and eyes that watched too closely, Madam Adora. She wore a bright ochre wrapper and gold bangles that sang softly when she moved. "Welcome, my son," she said with a warm smile. "You look tired. Come in. You'll find peace here." Her voice was gentle, motherly, but Jonas felt something heavy behind it, like a shadow smiling back. She showed him room 5. The walls were freshly painted, the floor polished until it gleamed. A small vase with plastic flowers sat by the window. "This room is special," she told him. "Everyone who lives here finds peace. You will too." Jonas nodded gratefully. Cheap rent, no questions asked, it felt like a miracle. That night, he lay on the new mattress, listening to the crickets outside. The air was cool, quiet, calm. But sometime after midnight, the calm turned strange. The generators from nearby houses went silent. Even the crickets stopped singing. And in that deep silence, Jonas heard it for the first time. A soft, slow hum drifting from Madam Adora's room, sweet and sorrowful. He couldn't explain why, but the sound made his skin crawl. Days turned into weeks, and Jonas began to settle in. Life at number 19 Ember Close was quiet, too quiet. The tenants were friendly but distant, like people moving through a dream. There was Mom and Ketchy, the seamstress by the gate, who sat every day on the same stool sewing the same wrapper. There was Emeka the barber, whose shop never had customers, yet he never complained. They all smiled the same soft smile whenever Jonas spoke to them. "How long have you lived here?" he asked Mama and Ketchy one afternoon. She looked up, eyes glassy. 5 years, she said softly. "We have peace here. That's enough." That word again, peace. Always peace. Never happiness, never progress. Jonas laughed uneasily and went back to his room. But deep inside he felt it, the stillness of the place was unnatural. Then came the first Saturday of the month. From early morning, A delicious aroma filled the air, spicy stew, boiling rice, something rich and heavy. The tenants began to gather in the courtyard with empty plates and excited chatter. Madam Adora appeared, dressed in a bright wrapper, her bangles jingling like tiny bells. "Today, we give thanks for peace," she said warmly. "Come and eat, my children." The pot was large and full. She served everyone herself, smiling as she prayed long, ancient words that didn't sound like any church prayer Jonas knew. When the meat landed on his plate, he frowned slightly. It was dark, oddly shaped, uneven. "Madam," he said politely, "what kind of meat is this?" She looked at him with that calm smile. "A special kind," she said softly. "Eat, and you will have peace." The others laughed lightly, chewing happily. Jonas forced a smile and took a bite, but as he chewed, a strange taste filled his mouth. Not goat. Not beef. Something heavier. He swallowed hard. For the first time, peace didn't taste like peace. Jonas woke the next morning with a heavy stomach and a strange dream clinging to his mind. He had seen a shadow standing by his bed, humming softly, the same tune Madam Adora sang that night when he first moved in. When he opened his eyes, no one was there. But the humming didn't stop, it echoed faintly in his head. At noon he stepped out into the bright sun. The tenants were cheerful as always, sweeping, laughing softly to themselves. Their eyes looked dull, like the shine had been washed away. "Did you sleep well?" Mama and Ketchy asked. "Yes," Jonas lied. In his hand, wrapped in nylon, was a small piece of leftover meat from the feast. Something about it had bothered him all night. The shape, the texture, the taste. He decided to visit the butcher's stall at the main market. "Ah, my brother," the butcher greeted. "You want fresh meat?" Jonas shook his head. "Please look at this one. What animal is it from?" The butcher opened the nylon, peered at the dark chunk, then frowned deeply. He turned it over, then looked up sharply. "Where did you get this?" he asked in a low voice. "From my landlady's party," Jonas said. "She said it's goat." The butcher stepped back, shaking his head. "No be goat, my friend. This one be human flesh." Jonas froze. His throat went dry. "What?" "I say human. Look, see this cut mark? That's no animal bone." Jonas staggered out of the stall, bile rising in his throat. The sun seemed too bright, the air too thick. Around him, people moved normally, laughing, buying, eating. Back at number 19 Ember Close, Madam Adora sat under the mango tree, smiling calmly as if waiting for him. "Jonas," she called softly, "why didn't you finish your blessing?" His heart pounded. Her gold bangles jingled with every movement, their sound suddenly sharp, like tiny chains. Jonas couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. The butcher's words echoed in his head like a curse, "This one be human flesh." For 2 nights, he lay awake listening to every sound in the compound, the creak of the gate, the soft sweep of a broom, the faint hum of Madam Adora's generator that seemed to run even when there was no light. And always, that smell. A faint metallic scent that floated through the corridor whenever she cooked. He told himself he was imagining things. But then he began to notice patterns. Every time a tenant traveled, Madam Adora cooked the next day. And no one ever came back. One afternoon, she called to him from her veranda, her tone calm as always. "My dear, I'm at the clinic. Please help me fetch my hospital card from my room. The spare key is inside the gourd beside the flower pot." Jonas hesitated. The key was cold in his hand. As he opened her door, a chill swept through him. The air inside was heavy, too still. Everything was neatly arranged. Pictures on the wall, fresh flowers on the table, a Bible on the stool beside her chair. But at the far end of the room hung a thick curtain. Behind it came the low hum of something electrical. He moved closer. His heart hammered against his ribs. Behind the curtain was a small metal freezer, locked, but humming steadily. The smell was stronger there. Jonas stood frozen. Something deep inside whispered, "Leave now." But curiosity, or maybe fate, made him open it. What he saw froze the scream in his throat. Inside were wrapped packages, arms, legs, a torso, a face pressed against clear plastic. All human. Jonas stumbled backward, bile burning his throat. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, filming quickly, whispering through tears. He ran out, locking the door behind him, his mind spinning. Madam Adora had said, "Room 5 brings peace." Now he knew what kind of peace she meant. Jonas couldn't stop shaking. He had seen death before, in movies, on news screens, but nothing like this. The freezer. The smell. The stillness of that face. It haunted him even with his eyes open. He packed a small bag that evening, determined to leave before dawn. But as night fell, strange things began to happen. First came the humming. Low. Soft. Familiar. The same tune Madam Adora always sang during her blessing prayers. Then came the whispers. He pressed his ear to the wall and froze. Voices, many voices, murmured from inside the walls. He couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like prayer. No, like a chant. Jonas checked his watch. 12:03 a.m. The ground vibrated slightly, as though the compound itself was breathing. Then, suddenly, silence. A silence so heavy, it hurt his ears. A faint click echoed from the corridor. Someone was unlocking his door. Jonas sat up, his pulse roaring in his ears. The door creaked open slowly, and there she was, Madam Adora. Her head tilted to one side, her eyes reflecting a strange glow in the dark. Behind her stood two men, their faces blank, their eyes empty. "You're awake," she said softly. Her voice was calm, too calm. "You weren't supposed to be." Jonas tried to speak, but his voice failed him. Madam Adora took a slow step inside. The air grew colder. "My children need peace," she whispered. "And peace must be fed." The men raised their machetes. Jonas grabbed his torchlight and swung. The first blow hit one man's arm. The second crashed into the wall. He ducked, kicked, fought like a madman. Blood splattered the walls. Someone screamed, maybe him. Then he ran. Barefoot, bleeding, he sprinted out into the darkness. Behind him, Madam Adora's shriek pierced the night. "Come back. You belong to me." He didn't stop running. Not until the lights of Hillcrest Police Post came into view. Jonas burst through the doors of the Hillcrest Police Post, gasping for air. His shirt was torn, his hands slick with blood, his own or someone else's he didn't know. "My landlady," he screamed. "She's not human. Please help." The officers on duty jumped up in confusion. Sergeant Uche, a tall man with tired eyes, stepped forward. "Calm down, young man. Who's not human?" Jonas tried to speak, but his words tangled. "Madam Adora. Number 19 Ember Close, she kills people." The officers exchanged glances. One of them muttered, "He's drunk." "I'm not." Jonas shouted, clutching his phone. "It's all here. I recorded everything." They took the phone, skeptical. The screen glowed as the video began to play. The first few seconds were shaky, Jonas' heavy breathing, the sound of the freezer humming. Then the curtain moved aside, revealing what lay inside. The room went still. Even the ticking wall clock seemed to pause. The image of human limbs wrapped in plastic filled the tiny police post. A woman's face, frozen in death, stared back through the screen. Sergeant Uche swallowed hard. "Yezu." Jonas slumped into a chair, trembling. I told you she's a monster." Without another word, the sergeant barked, "Okoye Emeka. Get the patrol van. Now." They sped toward Ember Close, siren off, lights dimmed. Jonas rode with them, shivering beneath a blanket. His heart pounded as they neared the compound. When they arrived, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The gate stood open, swaying slightly. Inside, the courtyard was spotless. No blood, no struggle, no sound. The officers moved in, torches raised. Madam Adora's door stood ajar, the smell of incense thick in the air. "The freezer, gone." Sergeant Uche whispered, "Where is she?" Jonas stepped back, fear crawling up his spine. From the darkness behind the mango tree came a low, familiar hum. That same haunting tune. The humming grew louder. Soft at first, then rising, twisting through the trees like smoke. It wasn't a tune anymore, it was a call. The officers froze, their torches trembling in their hands. From the shadows behind the mango tree, something moved. A figure stepped into the moonlight, tall, graceful, wrapped in white cloth that fluttered though there was no wind. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, her skin shimmering like oil. Madam Adora, but not as human as before. "Good evening, officers," she said, her voice calm, almost tender. Her golden bangles jingled softly. "Have you come for peace too?" Sergeant Uche raised his gun. "Stay where you are." She smiled. "Guns can't stop what you don't understand." Before they could react, the ground beneath them shifted, the soil breathing, rising like waves. Jonas stumbled back, screaming. From the earth, faint hands began to reach out, pale, half-formed, clutching at the officer's boots. One fired a shot. The bullet hit Madam Adora square in the chest. She staggered, then straightened slowly, untouched. "Blood for peace," she whispered. "That is the law of Ember Close." The lights flickered across the compound. The air grew hot, heavy. The smell of iron filled their nostrils, the scent of blood. Sergeant Uche shouted, "Retreat. Move." But it was too late. One of the officers was dragged down screaming, his torch spinning on the ground. Another fell to his knees, eyes blank, mumbling, "We have peace here, we have peace here." Jonas ran toward the gate, but it slammed shut on its own, the iron clanging like thunder. He turned back, gasping. Madam Adora was walking toward him slowly, the white cloth now darkening with blood. "My son," she said softly. "You've seen what you shouldn't. But don't worry, peace will take you too." Jonas clutched his phone and whispered, "Not this time." He hurled it at her and ran through the side fence, tearing his arm on the wire, vanishing into the street. Behind him, the humming turned into laughter. Soft. Endless. By morning, Ember Close was a graveyard of silence. No laughter. No sound of sweeping brooms. The compound that once smelled of stew now reeked of smoke and ash. Jonas woke up in a hospital bed, his arm bandaged, his voice weak. Two officers stood nearby, survivors from the team that had gone to the house. Sergeant Uche wasn't one of them. A woman from the state police spoke softly, "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Akanam." The fire started around 3 a.m. The entire building burned down. "We found no bodies, only ashes and melted metal." Jonas' eyes widened. "No bodies." She shook her head. "Nothing. Not even bones." He turned away, staring at the wall. The smell of smoke still clung to his skin. In his mind he could still hear her voice, "Peace must be fed." Later that afternoon, an investigator from Auca arrived. He placed a thin file on the table and sighed. "We dug into her past. Madam Adora Okone wasn't her real name. Her birth records trace back to Aqua Ibom, a small village called Ikat Udo. Locals there say she was once the wife of a powerful herbalist. The man died mysteriously, drained of blood. The villagers burned their home and chased her away." The investigator looked up. "That was 30 years ago." Jonas' mouth went dry. "So she's been moving from place to place ever since?" The man nodded. "Everywhere she lives, people disappear. Always quietly. Always 6 months apart." Jonas swallowed hard. "Then she's not human." The investigator's eyes darkened. "Maybe not." The neighbors at Ember Close said they often saw her talking to an empty chair at night. They thought it was grief. Jonas felt a chill crawl down his spine. Maybe she wasn't talking to herself. The investigator closed the file slowly. "The case is sealed for now," he said. "But tell me, Mr. Akanam, if that woman's gone." He paused, glancing at the window. "Then who's been paying your hospital bill since last night?" The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Jonas sat up weakly, staring at the envelope the nurse had just handed him. "Someone paid for your bills," she said, smiling faintly. "A woman. She said she's your mother." Jonas froze. "My mother is dead." The nurse blinked. "She insisted. She left this." Jonas took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single folded paper and a gold bangle, one he recognized instantly. Madam Adora's bangle. The paper carried neat, looping handwriting. "Peace follows those who accept it. Some fight it, some feed it. You ran, my son, but the circle isn't broken yet." Come home. Jonas' chest tightened. His vision blurred. The hum began softly again, faint at first, then louder, clearer. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside his head. He stumbled out of bed, ignoring the nurses calling after him. His bare feet slapped against the hospital floor as he rushed into the open air. The night was quiet, but the moon hung red over the city. Every street light flickered as he passed. Shadows seemed to follow. When he reached Ember Close, his breath caught. The compound was gone, burned to the ground. But in the middle of the ruins stood a single chair. And sitting on it, calm and regal, was Madam Adora. Her eyes glowed faintly. Her smile was soft, motherly. "Jonas," she whispered. "I told you, peace always returns home." He stepped back, shaking his head. "You're dead." She rose slowly, the ashes beneath her feet glowing faintly like embers. "Death is not for those who serve the law of peace. It's your turn now." Jonas tried to scream, but no sound came. The humming filled the air, swirling, pulling him closer. When dawn came, Ember Close was still silent. Only one thing had changed. Room 5 was standing again, newly painted, curtains drawn. A young woman stood at the gate, holding a box. Madam Adora's voice floated softly from inside. "Welcome, my dear. Room 5 brings peace."